That's right, boys and girls, we got a 2004 911 GT3. That's the 996.2 generation. And you don't need me to tell you that this is absolutely a special and very rare car. This car is not stock, it's got a lot of work done on it. The full mod list is down in the description as always. Car normally weighs 3,043 pounds, but with the mods, this car is about 100 pounds lighter, so the high 29s. This car has the legendary Metzger unit derived from the Porsche 962 and the 911 GT1. With this GT3, this is the first GT3 actually. Well, technically the 996.1 is the first GT3. This 996.2 is the first time they brought it over to the US. And they did things like removing the rear seats, lessening the sound deadening, making it a little bit more hardcore. We're up from 300 horsepower in the regular 996 to 360 horsepower in the GT3. As for mods, we have the GT3 Cup clutch, pressure plate, and lightweight flywheel, GT3 Cup LSD, as well as shifter linkage, Moton two-way adjustable dampers with H&R Springs, TRG Swaybar and Droplinks, S-Cargo racing headers and custom exhaust with the Cat Delete, upgraded Pagid brake pads on OEM rotors, Porsche OEM roll cage and harness, and euro-spec Recaro bucket seats. And with that out of the way, let's see how she drives. The seating position and the seats are quite nice, but I don't like the other inputs as much. And what I mean by that is the clutch requires a lot of travel, whereas the brake and gas are kind of high up, so it's weird to get a good seating position here. It's not difficult at all to heel toe, although I will say that the clutch pedal is essentially right at the center line of the steering wheel, just like the other 996s, which is a little bit suboptimal, I would say. It's kind of awkward. Hydraulic rack, teeming with feedback. I love it. A little bit lighter than I would have wanted, though. Would prefer a little bit heavier weighted rack. And because this is rear engine, this is before Porsche worked out the magic, right? They've been tuning this rear engine, rear wheel drive chassis for decades. And this is, you know, the late 90s, early aughts, where they hadn't quite figured it out to the same degree they have today. So on throttle input, you get a good amount of understeer actually. More so than even the 997 generation, regular Recaro that I drove. Not a very easy car to drive. It requires a different approach. You need to trail brake into the corners, and you can't be too rough with either throttle or brake input, because you'll find yourself spinning ends. Pretty stiff suspension, and it's not handling these bumps as well as some other cars that I've driven here. It's getting pretty easily unsettled actually, especially on the front end. Again, you don't have much weight on that front end. We have McPherson struts. They only brought the double wishbone in the 992 generation. Now, this is obviously not the Widowmaker that the 930 and 964 were, but this is a car that you need to concentrate when you drive. It's not easy at the limits. It requires that different rear engine approach to make sure that you don't spin out. Nice and easy to heel toe. Clutch travels a bit long. The feel is okay. I can feel the engagement point. But man, it just wants to understeer as soon as you get on the throttle. And even mid-corner and even on these bumps, you can really feel the front end getting unsettled, bouncing around. A little bit of oversteer. That 8,000 RPM though, that is pretty intoxicating. Now, similar to the other 996s, The transmission, the gear selector has a lot of lateral slop. Even with these upgraded shifter linkages, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's positive on gear engagement, but it's still a little bit sloppy. It's a little bit looser than I would want in a car like this. The 997 GT3 is definitely a step up in terms of gear selector feel. But even the more recent Porsches, including the Caymans, are a step up beyond that as well. Oh, holy understeer. This thing just wants to plow as soon as you give it any throttle. Trail braking is really key here. You gotta get the weight on the front of the GT3, otherwise you have no grip in the front. That's why as soon as you get on throttle mid-corner, it just wants to straighten out. So you need to rotate the car, point it where you want, and then get on the throttle. Smooth inputs are really key with this car. There we go. Throttle response is immediate. Makes it very easy to actually rev match and heel toe downshift with ease. And the brakes, the initial, again, half centimeter, nothing happens really much at all. And after that, once you get past that, then it's fantastic. Then it has a very firm feel, easy to modulate, and quite linear. And even though this car has only 39,000 miles, you can see minor signs of its age. Things like the steering not being quite as tight and precise as some newer generation vehicles. Again, the slop in the gear selector. And even with the brakes, that initial centimeter or half a centimeter has real no input. But the unique chassis dynamics of the 996 generation is part of the appeal, actually, because as humans we tend to find challenging things more enjoyable. If this was too easy to drive, we may find it boring. That's actually a common critique of the Caymans, is that they're almost too easy. They're too balanced. And a car like this really makes you work for it. It's razor edge. It's going to bite if you don't play nicely. It's going to bite if you don't know what you're doing. And that's part of the thrill. Now, when you compare this to the other 996 generation Porsches, you can really see how far removed this is. Can you see the commonalities, the same language and the gear selector and the pedal placement and all those things? Absolutely. But the driver focus and the driver engagement in the GT3 is multiple levels beyond the Carrera 4S I drove or the other base Carrera I reviewed as well. Overall, still a very fun and rewarding experience to drive, although you are a little bit on edge in a car like this. Anyway, let me know what you guys think with a comment down below. Much love, my friends. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in that next one.